Hello my fellow cake loving babies, you're watching Le Bon Baker. I'm Le Bon Baker and today we're going to decorate a cake together. This video comes in two parts. Part 1, a naked cake, and not talking about you and me. Part 2, we'll decorate this in a simple, beautiful, easy design. So let's get to it. Alright, so on my bench here, I've got some of my essentials for cake decorating. If you haven't checked out the video yet, make sure you do. It'll give you some useful tools that hopefully that you'll be able to use as well. Alright, so to start with, I've got my large serrated knife. So this is going to help us to cut the top off the cake and cut this in the middle. Then next, I've got my straight spatula. This one is nice and firm. This one's going to help us spread the frosting all around the cake. I've got my spring handle scoop. So this one we're going to use for the icing, putting it on the cake, making sure that we've got consistent amounts as well. Next, I've got my actual cake. So this is a coconut cake. It's absolutely delicious. I've got a recipe for it. If you're interested, check it out. This is a 9-inch cake. It's on a 10-inch cake board, and then on below that is the rotating cake stand. So I think every cake decorator needs one of these. Make sure you get one. It's going to make your life so much easier. Then last but not least, I've got this delicious vanilla buttercream icing. So make sure you give it a good whip up here. Make sure it's really nice and smooth and good to go. Also got a vanilla bean recipe up for that one, so check it out. What we're going to do now is cut the top of the cake off. So we want to make sure that each layer is nice and even. So you can see here they rise, they're a little bit different. It's not completely even throughout. So we're going to take that top off and then we're going to cut this bad boy in half as well and make sure that it's really nice and consistent. Hot tip, just use the side walls here as a guide as to where to start cutting the cake. So that'll give you an indicator of where will be nice and even all throughout. So I've got clean hands, going to put one hand on the top of the cake and hold it down nice and firmly. The other hand has got my knife over here, and I'm going to start slowly cutting into the cake and rotating it around. So keeping your knife in the same position and rotating the cake. So I've done my first cut. This one's taking his little hat off, and don't worry, it's going to go to good use. I'm still going to eat this. But next I'm going to do another one a little bit closer to the top of the sidewall here, and that'll give a more exact, even cake. Again, keeping your knife in the same position and moving the cake, rotating the cake all the way around. Once you've cut through, scoop off all the crumbs and make sure that your cake is nice and clear, because we don't want the crumbs to get into the icing. When you are cutting through your cake, either the lid or to make an extra layer, don't worry if it's not completely perfect. We'll just patch it up with a bit of frosting and icing here. What helps me is to make sure that I keep my knife in the same position and then I'm just rotating the cake around. And then the further your cake comes in, the more your knife will start sinking into that. So it's going to come clearly across the whole way by the end of it, and it's going to be a nice flat even surface. So the second lid of the cake is going to come off here and just move to the side, and once that's all gone, we're going to just pick up the cake and put any of the crumbs over to this side. You want to make sure you get all the crumbs off the cake, because otherwise this is going to get into the icing, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen. I want to add a second layer to this cake, so I've got to cut it in half. Now I've got to find where half is, or thereabouts. I'm going to push in with my knife, so make an insertion, make sure that your hand is pressed firmly down on the cake, and you've also got a firm hold of your knife here, and you can start to move the cake around. Continue cutting, continue pressing so I can feel it in the center of the cake. It's starting to cut through, and that's cut in half. Now I can take my knife all the way through. Let's see how we went. Wunderbar. And I want to make sure I get rid of all of my crumbs again. So pick up your cake, take it over to the sink or your bin or wherever you want to get rid of it, and just give it a little dusting. All right, so all that you have to do now is grab that top layer of your cake, sit it on top, and your cake is done. Just joking, you didn't get out of it that easily. Now we're gonna ice the center layer of the cake. So pick up your top layer, just move that off to the side for now. We'll come back to that in a little bit. And I'm gonna get 2 scoops of icing. Perfect. And what we can do is just start to paste that evenly all around the cake. It's okay if it spills off to the side. Try and keep it in the center if you can. So now I'm going to spread the icing in this center piece of the cake all around and make sure it's nice and even. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Keep pushing it around, spreading it around. This is why a cake turntable is so valuable. It makes your life so much easier. My center layer is all done, so now I can put the top layer on and we'll make it beautiful. So when you put the top back on, make sure it's placed nice and evenly all the way around. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some scoops on here and then we're going to spread it all around, and as we spread it we're also sort of scraping the sides, making sure that it's nice and even all the way around. So I'm going to start with 3 scoops of icing for this and see how we go. If we need to add a bit more we can. It's better to start with a little bit less than too much. So make sure you're spreading it nice and evenly throughout, pushing up to the sides as well. We want it to spill over a little bit because we're going to use that to spread around the outside of the cake. So the way I find it easiest to ice a cake is to spread, and as I'm spreading, I'm pulling or rotating the cake in towards me. So I'm spreading outwards and I'm pulling it inwards. Now what you want to do is just take any excess off the cake and it'll give that beautiful naked cake appearance. So I want to make sure I've got no frosting on my spatula, get that nice and clean. And then as you go around, press really nice and firmly, but you want to press flat as you go around the cake. So firm and flat so it doesn't cut in. It's taking any excess off. Scraping and ploughing without cutting into the cake. Sides done, time for the top. One last thing, we've done the sides, we've done the top. Just go around the bottom, scrape off anything that's come onto your cake board. We'll give the cake board a little wipe down. So that's your naked cake all done. Bet you it was a lot easier than what you thought. It's now ready to top off with some beautiful flowers or anything that you like. If you do want to keep watching, I've got a beautiful way to decorate this a little bit further. So you've come along this far, make sure you stay tuned.